I heard the stream is on. I hope that's true. Good to go. All right, thank you. Thank you. Back to online learning. We good? All right, thank you. So there are advantages and disadvantages to studying online, and the committee will hear some of those today. We will also discuss concerns that are often raised about online learning, including about faculty preparedness to teach fully online, and the availability of support services for students who need them. Focusing on CUNY, the committee will seek an overview of the current status of and future plans for its online degree programs. And I will just tell you all, on a personal note, I am very much looking forward to speaking with CUNY and some of the other professionals in the field, because having taught online during the pandemic and taught students with disabilities, it was a real challenge, not just for me, but for the students, to really get that same level of education, that quality education, and not to mention that it was a challenge for the faculty all around. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing about that. I want to acknowledge and thank some people, Adam Staropoli, my legislative director, my chief of staff, Jenna Klaus, Chloe Rivera, the committee's senior policy analyst, who unfortunately is transitioning off the committee in a couple weeks, Regina Paul, who fortunately is transitioning on the committee. It's the committee's policy analyst, and Nia Hyatt, the committee's senior finance analyst. I would also like to remind everyone who wishes to testify in person today that you must fill out the witness slip. It looks like this, which is located on the desk of the Sergeant at Arms near the entrance of the room, over there. Please fill out the slip even if you have already registered in advance. That way, that you will be testifying in person today. To allow as many people as possible to testify, testimony will be limited to 3 minutes per person, whether you are testifying in person or on Zoom. I'm also going to ask my colleagues to limit their testimony to 5 minutes. I'll have to repeat that when they get here. Please note that witnesses who are here in person will testify before those who are signed into the Zoom webinar, except with one exception of one of our national experts who's joining us from Colorado. We used to say via satellite. That was like now we say via Zoom. I won't. I'd like to call up the first four witnesses: Judith Kahn, Kimberly Siegenthaler, and Tracy Mead, and Jamie Lerner. Now, in accordance with the rules of the council, I will administer the affirmation. That's not my time, is it? Okay. In accordance with the rules of the council, I will administer the affirmation to the witnesses from CUNY. So that's Ms. Kahn, Dr. Siegenthaler, and Ms. Mead. Would you please raise your right hand? You're good. You're good. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to the council members' questions? Thank you. And as a reminder to all of our witnesses, please state your name prior to your testimony for the record. You may begin with your opening statement.
Is the green light, red light, green, I'm on. Yeah, I'm good. Okay.
Yeah, red light is good. Red light means go, as it does everywhere in New York.
Good morning, Chairperson Eric Dinowitz and members of the Committee on Higher Education. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony before you regarding online education at the City University of New York. My name is Kim Siegenthaler, and I have the privilege of serving as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Strategy and Operations for the City University of New York. In that role, my top priority is the development of the online education infrastructure to support all CUNY campuses in their efforts to sustain and expand CUNY's online course and program portfolios. I'm joined today by Dr. Judith Kahn, Director of the Department of Online Education and Support at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and Ms. Tracy Mead, Senior Associate Dean for Strategy and Innovation at the School of Professional Studies. Each will share information about the successful online programs offered by their campuses. When we talk about online education in higher education, we must acknowledge the effect of the pandemic in reshaping the landscape nationally as well as at CUNY. In short, we've experienced 2 years of anomalous online course offerings and student enrollments that make comparative analyses of online and in-person experiences and outcomes particularly challenging. For example, the U.S. Department of Education extended temporary flexibility to institutions to implement distance learning solutions to continue educating students during COVID. Because of this flexibility and out of necessity to enable students to continue progress toward degree, many programs have functioned as online programs, and students have been online learners without preparation or intent to do so. Faculty and students unaccustomed to teaching and learning in an online environment struggled to adapt quickly during a highly stressful and unprecedented crisis. The CUNY SPS course, Online Teaching Essentials, was launched during the COVID shutdown to help campuses pivot quickly to online instruction. The workshop has been offered 11 times since May of 2020 and has trained over 3,400 CUNY faculty. Due to anomalies associated with the pandemic, variations in IPEDS and NYSED online identification and reporting criteria, and individual campus decisions regarding whether to identify and track students in online programs separately from students in on-ground programs, we are unable at this time to provide university-wide comparative data for enrollment in, graduation from, or revenue generated from online versus on-campus degree programs. We are putting structures in place that will enable us to do so going forward. 89 online programs from 16 campuses are registered with NYSED. Of the campuses with registered online programs, SPS leads the way with 36, and John Jay follows with 11. Kingsborough Community College offers 10 online programs. These 3 campuses account for 64% of CUNY's registered online programs. I share a snapshot of enrollment trends by modality and level with the caveat that these are semester-specific data and not necessarily indicative of a student's enrollment trend semester over semester. Some of the students would have been enrolled in online degree programs, whereas others would have been in campus programs. In fall 2017, less than 1% of associate students enrolled exclusively in online classes. 6% enrolled in a mixture of online and in-person classes, and over 93% enrolled in in-person classes only. 2% of baccalaureate students enrolled exclusively in online classes, 10% enrolled in a mixture of online and in-person classes, 88% enrolled in in-person classes only. The notable exception to this trend was SPS, where nearly 93% of students enrolled exclusively in online classes. At the graduate level, 5.5% of master's students enrolled exclusively in online classes. No doctoral students did so. 8.5% of master's students enrolled in a mixture of online and in-person classes, with a double handful of doctoral students doing the same. In fall of 2020, enrollments at all levels by modality were reversed, with 96% of associate and baccalaureate enrollments exclusively online and 87% of graduate enrollments exclusively online. Preliminary data for fall of 2020 show a trend toward more in-person enrollments, 63% overall, but with exclusively online enrollments remaining substantially higher than pre-pandemic. The Graduate Center at 68%, the School of Professional Studies at 97%, and the Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy at 88% have majority fully online enrollments. There were no significant differences in student demographics for fall of 2019 and fall of 2021. Overall, women were more likely to enroll exclusively in online courses at the undergraduate level. This is true at both the senior and community sector. Black and Hispanic students were more likely to enroll in exclusively online or some online courses compared to white and Asian students. Older students tended to enroll in exclusively online courses at the graduate level and to a lesser extent at the senior colleges. All students, regardless of modality, have access to the online mental health resources provided by CUNY. Some campuses provide additional online counseling services via telecounseling. Online students with disabilities access and secure accommodation through the Offices of Disability and Accessibility by the same online format as on-campus students. With respect to issues faced by students and faculty participating in online programs, it is important to note that some were experienced more widely by faculty and students due to the pivot to remote instruction during the pandemic and may not be specific to faculty and students intentionally participating in online degree programs. Identified issues mirror those experienced nationwide during the pandemic. Faculty identified issues such as lack of access to necessary equipment and technology, lack of timely IT support, lack of access to instructional designers with online expertise, and inadequate preparation to teach effectively in the online environment. Students faced issues such as lack of high-speed internet and adequate technology at home, lack of a quieter or private place to do homework, and uneven access to non-instructional support services such as financial assistance, advisement, registration, counseling and career services, and tutoring. As we emerge from the pandemic, there is an increased focus on the role of online education across CUNY. The university has identified quality online learning as a foundational strategy upon which it can broaden its scale, maximize its impact, and assist adult learners and historically underserved populations of New York City realize their full potential. As I mentioned previously, my role is to develop and implement a CUNY-wide strategy for online education. As a critical initial step, we have commissioned a gap in occupational mapping analysis that will identify where additional online programs are needed to meet the educational needs of New York City. The analysis will examine all levels and disciplines across all CUNY colleges and will inform strategic development of dozens of new online programs at the certificate, associate, baccalaureate, and graduate levels to enable students to progress smoothly online on their educational journeys. Ensuring that faculty are well prepared and supported to teach effectively in the online environment is a high priority. We have initiated a university-wide assessment of faculty professional development needs specific to online instruction and will develop resources and learning opportunities to meet those needs. CUNY is committed to ensuring that online students at all campuses have access to wraparound support services. To that end, we are undertaking a CUNY-wide scan to identify and address technology and resource challenges for students and faculty. Several CUNY offices are working on this, including enrollment management, computer information systems, student success, student affairs, and academic programs and policy. Achieving the identified goals of rapid online program expansion, high-quality online instruction, and comprehensive student support services is, as with most strategic initiatives, dependent on funding. That said, I am confident that CUNY is well-positioned to make substantial strides in expanding its online degree program portfolio. Evidence of this commitment is the work of the individual campuses to increase their online program offerings. One notable example is Lehman College, now in the process of developing 14 new online programs. Now you'll hear from my colleague, Dr. Judith Kahn, Director of Online Education and Support at John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Thank you. Thank you, Committee Chair Dinowitz and members of the City Council Higher Education Committee for the opportunity to provide testimony about online education. My name is Judith Kahn, and I am the Director of Online Education and Support at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Online education has been considered a method for democratizing education, providing access to education for everyone, anywhere, anytime. For those working full-time or managing childcare, for our students who lead complex lives juggling home life, work, and health issues, we can offer opportunity that previously had been unavailable to them, an education that mirrors our on-campus programs in its quality and rigor. Providing such options supports our very mission at John Jay College, to ensure education is just, equitable, and inclusive. John Jay offers several fully online graduate degree programs, asynchronous online courses that lead to a master's degree through John Jay Online. This differs from the online courses offered at the undergraduate level. The John Jay Online graduate programs leverage the well-known branding and unique niche of John Jay College in all areas of criminal and social justice. Since its inception in 2014, John Jay Online has developed 6 fully online master's programs. In the past 5 years, we have attracted over 1,500 new students enrolling in our master's programs in criminal justice, international crime and justice, human rights, security management, emergency management, and public administration. Total enrollments for the past 5 years are over 3,000 students. 40% of new graduates in fall 2022 are in online programs, and the withdrawal rates remain under 4%. The courses in these programs are taught primarily by faculty who teach on campus. The Graduate Admissions Online Enrollment Advisor and the John Jay Online Student Services Manager advise the applicants and our students with understanding and sensitivity specific to online learning. They ensure our students remain connected with the college through their online studies through various communication methods. Our Blackboard Learning Management team supports our faculty and students with technical issues. New students in online programs complete an orientation to learn about the system so the technology is not an obstacle to their educational experience. For the year 2021, over $2 million in revenue was realized from the online graduate programs, which may also be attributed to COVID pandemic issues and the fact that we offer studies that attract first responders and others who were and continue to be on the front lines. It is additional revenue for the college that we would not have had if we were only a brick-and-mortar institution. In addition to our graduate initiatives, we've seen tremendous growth in the number of students who register for online courses on the undergraduate level. Before the COVID pandemic in 2019, 22% of all undergraduate and graduate courses were online. This fall of 2022, 35% of our courses are fully online. As we built and continue to build the infrastructure to support rapid growth in these programs and online course offerings, our focus has been to ensure our efforts are student-centered. The online program development team includes experienced instructional designers and multimedia specialists who collaborate with faculty to bring best practices in online teaching, guided by the online course quality rubric developed at SUNY and adopted by the Online Learning Consortium to ensure students are engaged in their online learning experiences. This includes being sensitive to ADA compliance in the online design to ensure education is truly accessible. Our Office of Accessibility Services works to support students with disabilities with assistive technology needs. Our Department of Information Technology provides laptops and hotspots for students in need. We've implemented an online excellence project where instructional designers collaborate with academic departments and faculty to develop quality model courses for undergraduate online courses with high enrollments that can be used each semester for multiple sections. The courses designed incorporate activities and assignments to promote student engagement and to differentiate instruction for all types of learners. The Online Excellence Project will impact over 85 courses by the end of this academic year, and this in turn will translate to improving the online learning experience for thousands of students. In addition to the credit-bearing online courses, the John Jay Department of Professional Studies with the Department of Online Education developed and have offered non-credit professional studies online courses, including investigative psychology, the Department of Corrections Captain's Exam Prep, an ADA advocacy program, introduction to grant writing, and foundations in professional writing. All successes are accomplished through partnerships at the college, and we continue to collaborate CUNY-wide to make online courses work, addressing online student needs as well as professional development needs for faculty. We focus on how the student interacts with the content, the instructor, the other students, and the student support teams work to keep students connected with the college. Policies and protocols are addressed on an ongoing basis at the college level and throughout CUNY, collaborating with university peers through the CUNY Committee on Academic Technology and other committees. We work through issues of governance, intellectual property, compliance, security and FERPA, new learning technologies, quality assurance, and assessment. And as we expand our online initiatives, we keep in mind the variables for a successful online course or program. The course must be well-designed online course according to quality standards. Students need to feel adept in the learning management system and understand expectations for success in the online environment, which we accomplish through orientation, workshops, and advisors. Students complete orientations to acclimate them to the learning environment and to introduce common online instructional methods. The self-efficacy and confidence of instructors in the online environment are important variables for faculty to facilitate online student learning effectively. We've offered numerous workshops for faculty, and in 2021, we were named winners of the Blackboard Catalyst Award for Training and Professional Development, which honors those who use Blackboard to support and enhance the faculty and staff's professional development. Our effective practices in online teaching workshops certified over 340 faculty during 2020, and that's in addition to the many faculty who completed the Online Teaching Essentials workshop run by the School of Professional Studies, also an award-winning initiative. We support faculty through course design consultations, webinars, instructional video design and production, monthly newsletters replete with resources, an online education website, and the All Things Online podcast. For some, the online teaching environment has been a complete paradigm shift. The instructor is no longer a sage on a stage, but more of a guide on the side. And while many acquired new skills during the pandemic, we need to distinguish between Zoom remote teaching and asynchronous fully online courses and programs. More development opportunities are needed to help faculty make this shift. It's also critical to ensure that students feel a sense of community and connected with the college. Support opportunities are available online through the library, the Writing Center, Mental Health Center, and other Student Services Center. Students can request appointments online, email, or a virtual front desk. And John Jay recognizes that the online student is an integral member of the community. But we are addressing some administrative challenges about online learning as well, such as defining the term online education and assessing outcomes. The term online education is a large umbrella and includes various forms of technology-enhanced education. During the pandemic, for example, faculty were trying to replicate their on-campus courses online through web conferencing tools such as Zoom to conduct remote classes. Others tried hybrid forms using Blackboard plus synchronous Zoom sessions. Others worked on developing asynchronous courses on Blackboard, which we encouraged in the workshops. And when CUNY introduced a partial return to campus, we were focusing on hybrid models, and some CUNY colleges piloted HyFlex. While we plan to examine comparison data between online and on-campus to inform our future planning, we hesitate to do so just yet. It is premature to draw conclusions based on pandemic times data with CUNY students who were disproportionately affected in terms of family health and employment factors, many of whom are frontline workers. However, some pre-pandemic data may enlighten. So examining data from the years 2014 to 2019, it revealed that the demographics of students who take courses online closely resembles our total campus demographics. 63% of our undergraduate students who take online courses are between the ages of 20 and 24. The male use of online courses grew slightly faster than female use. Online course taking has contributed to a larger number of credits taken, not to a different distribution of credits taken. Out of over 3,000 students to graduate with a bachelor's in 2018, 41% had taken 4 or more courses online toward their degree. And there were differences in outcomes between online and on-campus students, but the gap between in-person and online drop, fail, withdraw, incompletes rates is shrinking at both the graduate and undergraduate level. I've attached charts to provide you with more detail. Recognizing the outcomes discrepancy in 2019, the original mission of the Department of Online Education to support graduate students expanded to support undergraduate online education and improve the quality of the undergraduate online courses. Faculty development programs began just prior to the COVID campus closure when we worked to support the campus effort to shift online. It was the impetus to develop the award-winning workshop and pursue the Online Excellence Project as described. Also related to the issue of analytics, establishing definitions about various modalities of courses and the appropriate coding of them within CUNY First to extract accurate data is in progress. But our ongoing emphasis, though, is on offering quality education regardless of the method of delivery. As more students enroll in online courses, we are mindful that we need to maintain and add support systems. I want to clarify, though, that more students enrolling in online courses does not mean that more students are added to the same section of an online course. Rather, we adhere to the enrollment caps for online courses. Therefore, additional course sections would be open and faculty would be added. Looking forward, John Jay College plans to create an undergraduate completion degree in criminal justice so that students in CUNY's Justice Academy who begin their criminal justice degrees at BMCC or Queensborough Community College online can complete their degrees online at John Jay. It will be our first undergraduate degree completion program. There is little doubt that there has been a seismic shift in the higher education landscape nationwide that began before the pandemic and has now been accelerated by it. But quality education is quality education regardless of the method of delivery. With a greater understanding of the benefits of offering options for accessing education through various modalities of learning, supporting online learning at the college and the university helps us to meet the needs of all New Yorkers by providing them with opportunities to connect to our college and to higher education. Thank you for your continued support. I now turn it over to my colleague, Tracy Mead.
Tracy Mead. Good morning. Chairperson Dinowitz and members of the Higher Education Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you on this important and exciting topic of CUNY's online programs. My name is Tracy Mead, and I am the Senior Associate Dean for Strategy and Innovation at the CUNY School of Professional Studies, CUNY SPS for short. My testimony will focus on CUNY SPS, which in 2003 was established by the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York to meet the educational needs of working adults. This morning I am joined by CUNY SPS student Jamie Lerner Brecker, a graduate student in our online Masters in Disability Studies program. In 2006, CUNY SPS offered the first fully online degree program at CUNY. Today we offer 25 fully online degrees, 13 undergraduate and 12 graduate programs. I'll make a quick note here that the 36 cited by Kim is accurate. There's a way in which we register our nursing programs at the state that increases the count because we have some accelerated programs, but this is the student-facing number that students see on our website. As I noted earlier, CUNY SPS was established to serve working adults. Our online undergraduate degree programs are designed to serve a transfer-only student population. That is, our bachelor's degree programs enroll students with some college credits, but no degree. This is a significantly under-enrolled population in New York City. According to 2020 U.S. Census data, there were 1,190,000 people over the age of 25 in New York City with some college but no degree. The population with some college but no degree speaks to our school's steady enrollment growth. In the 2017-18 academic year, we enrolled 1,554 bachelor's degree students and 596 master's degree students. In 2021-22, we enrolled 2,441 bachelor's degree students and 1,119 master's degree students, for a 66% increase in enrollment in our online degree programs over this 5-year period. Please note that I have provided year-over-year enrollment numbers and other data broken out by degree programs on the final pages of my testimony. As the census numbers show, the need for the university to expand its online programming to reach even more working adults with some college and no degree, as well as high school grads without a college degree, is an enrollment imperative. Our alumni base has grown too. In academic year 2016-17, 249 students graduated with bachelor's degrees and 100 with master's degrees. 5 years later, 625 students graduated with bachelor's degree, and 309 with master's degrees. Over 3,000 online students graduated from CUNY SPS in this 5-year period. A snapshot of student demographics in CUNY SPS online undergraduate degree programs follows. 33% are Black, 28% white, 22% Hispanic, 16% Asian or Pacific Islander, and 0.3% American Indian or Native Alaskan. 2% of our online undergraduate students are 20 and younger, 45% between 21 and 30, 34% between 31 and 40, and 19% are over 41 years old. 72% are women. 66% are enrolled part-time, the highest percentage of part-time undergraduate students in the university. 75% reside in New York City, 11% in New York State, and 14% reside outside of New York. The majority of our undergraduates work full or part-time or serve in the military. A snapshot of student demographics in our online master's programs follows. 45% are white, 27% Black, 18% Asian or Pacific Islander, 11% Hispanic, and 0.2% American Indian or Native Alaskan. 40% are between the ages of 21 and 30, 32% between 31 and 40, and 29% are over 41 years old. 68% are women, 95% are enrolled part-time, 60% reside in New York City, 16% in New York State, and 24% reside outside New York. I'll now turn to our students, their needs, and the innovations and departures from traditional undergraduate program that characterize CUNY SPS's commitment to access and success for adult online learners. I will focus my time on our undergraduate students. Online access and success. Jumpstart. In addition to our traditional admissions application process, we took note of the number of applicants denied admission because they did not meet the school's cumulative GPA requirement of 2.5 or better. Many of our students have been out of college for years, their transcripts a relic of a former self, and many dipped in and out of college, attending multiple colleges with mixed academic success and no sense of their cumulative GPA. To be responsive to working adults who believe their prior GPA does not reflect their present academic potential, we developed an alternative performance-based application called Jumpstart. Instead of focusing on traditional academic requirements and a threshold GPA, our alternative admissions approach allows applicants to create a portfolio to demonstrate the college-level skills and knowledge they have developed in college and, importantly, for working adults in the workplace, in areas such as leadership, research, technical skills, professional writing, and languages. Disability services. CUNY SPS is committed to providing a safe and equitable environment for all our students, including disabled students. Our electronic case management system allows students a seamless online interface to register with the Office of Student Disability Services, securely upload disability documentation, make appointments to meet with staff, and request accommodation letters. As a fully remote operation, OSDS engages students in determining individual accommodation plans, provides students with assistive software, alternative format textbooks, one-on-one support services, and distributes hundreds of accommodations letters to faculty each semester. Relatedly, CUNY SPS has 3 online degree programs focused on disability studies, the first such programs in the nation: Disability Studies BA, Disability Studies MA, and Disability Services in Higher Education, MS. In addition to bringing to our school a heightened awareness of the importance of designing accessible courses, events, and community spaces, these programs have drawn and recruited students, faculty, and staff who themselves have disabilities. As the home of CUNY's Disability Studies academic programs, disabilities culture and accessibility are woven into the fabric of CUNY SPS. Counseling services. At CUNY SPS, online students have full access to all of the Office of Counseling Services free and confidential mental health support services via telephone and video telehealth platforms. The licensed clinical psychologists at CUNY SPS offer the direct clinical services that typically form the core of campus-based mental health care: consultation, crisis assessment and intervention, short-term psychotherapy, and when needed, customized and supported referrals. The provision of mental health service via telehealth removes barriers like transportation, time, and costs that prevent so many students from accessing mental health care. Credit for prior learning. CUNY SPS understands that knowledge gained outside the classroom is extremely valuable. As a result, we offer a number of credit for prior learning opportunities that make it possible for students to earn up to 45 college credits from portfolio evaluation, examination, non-collegiate learning, and corporate and military training. CPL is one reason why CUNY SPS received the prestigious Adult Learner Impact Award from the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning in 2019. This annual honor recognizes member institutions that have shown an outstanding commitment to the expansion, access, and quality of lifelong learning opportunities and academic programs for adult learners. Information technology. The CUNY SPS Office of Information Technology provides live technical support for students, faculty, and staff. Students can request technical assistance via telephone or email. To meet the needs of students engaged in online degree programs, there are direct links from every course to support services. Courses are built on a standardized design so that students have a consistent interface for quick access to services of all kinds, including tech support services. Another critical component of student success at CUNY SPS is access to live online 24/7 tutoring. Students engaged in online degree programs at CUNY SPS have access to tutoring services through tutor.com. And now for a couple of recent initiatives, CUNY SPS Black Male Initiative and SEEK. In academic year 2021, CUNY SPS was awarded its first Black Male Initiative grant, marking the inclusion of working adults who study part-time and online into the CUNY BMI portfolio. Another breakthrough this year is the launch of our online SEEK program. As with the Black Male Initiative, we intend to demonstrate that these important university programs can support the success of online adult learners, as well as the traditional freshmen at CUNY's baccalaureate colleges that have long been the beneficiaries of these programs. Food Access Initiative. We launched the first fully remote program in CUNY to address food insecurity, the CUNY SPS Food Access Initiative. Since its inception in spring 21, we've granted 1,499 awards to 691 students. We know from the Students USDA Adult Food Security Survey that these $50 microgrants are critical to the well-being of our students. This is but a slice of what we do, and I should mention that for the second year in a row, CUNY SPS has been named in the top 10 of U.S. News & World Report's list of best online bachelor's programs nationwide. CUNY SPS is an innovative and continually evolving school, meeting the needs of working adults who want to finish what they started and come to us for the flexibility offered by online programs. I invite you to visit our school. Councilwoman Brewer did a few years back in her role as Manhattan Borough President.
John.
Right on. Thank you to the Higher Education Committee for the opportunity to share with you an overview of the university's commitment to serving adult learners through CUNY SPS's online programs. Now you will hear from CUNY SPS student Jamie Lerner-Brecker.
Yeah, and before you begin, I think you gave her a shout out at the perfect time. We've been joined by Council Member, former President Gail Brewer. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jamie Lerner-Brecker. I am a master's student. I'm finishing up my degree in the Disability Studies program. And I served on University Student Council last year as the co-chair of the Disability and Mental Health Committee and the vice chair of the Academic Affairs Committee. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. It's an honor to be here. Councilmember Brewer, it's lovely to see you again. I'm sure you don't remember me, but I remember your staunch support for the arts and education from my days as a member of the Young People's Chorus of New York City. Like millions of other people in this country, I'm disabled and considered high risk during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. With complete confidence, I can say that I am only in school because of CUNY's SPS's online degree program. The classroom is just not a safe place for me right now. My experiences of accessibility, opportunity, and staff that goes above and beyond for their students at SPS might only be the tale of one person, but I know I speak on behalf of the many disabled and non-disabled students I've interacted with in my various student leadership positions, as well as the myriad of high-risk people who have felt excluded from traditional higher education. Throughout the pandemic, I've felt extreme isolation, increasingly so as most people have dropped the precautions that keep me safe. Yet CUNY SPS's online MA program has provided me with a lifeline into the world, both socially and academically, and has given me a sense of purpose and community. Because the program's online, I've enmeshed myself in both student life and academic opportunities that I physically couldn't do as an in-person student. For example, I participated in multiple 8-hour meetings on the search committee to help find a new dean of SPS. Due to my disability, I physically cannot sit up or concentrate for 8 hours at a time. But on a Zoom meeting, other people didn't know that I was lying in bed with my feet on the wall. Back-to-back meetings with the CUNY Board of Trustees and the ADA 504 committee, no problem. No inaccessible subways, stations to slog through, or running from building to building. I simply clicked a link. I could fully utilize every resource at my disposal because I had the time, energy, and access, thanks to the online nature of the program. Which leads me to my next point. I cannot understate how helpful the close and consistent communication from both Student Services and the Office of Disability Services has been. As a student with a learning disability, I require quite a few academic accommodations. However, many of those needs become obsolete in an online environment that already utilizes universal design. At Columbia University, where I got my bachelor's degree, the head of Disability Services once told me that she spent nearly 50% of her job coordinating classrooms and physical exams for students with extra time. Without this task, the Office of Disability Services in an online program can spend significantly more time meeting students' unique and individual needs. At SPS, Disability Services manages to respond to requests with a speed I have not witnessed elsewhere, and I've attended 4 universities. The same is true of Student Services. Because they don't have to constantly track down classrooms to hold events in, something that takes an unbelievable amount of time and money in a city with a shortage of space, they have more time to help students and get to know them personally. When I offhandedly mentioned that I had an idea to provide disability training to staff and faculty, staff from Student Services, Disability Services, and the 504 ADA committee all reached out to me independently to try to help turn that idea into a reality. They had the resources to assign me someone in Student Services to help me write a grant to fund the project, which I ultimately won. This type of individualized services is simply unmatched. Right now, disabled people who have historically been excluded from university education and drop out at an unbelievably high rate, nearly 71%, face additional barriers to higher education. Many cannot take public transportation without fear for their health and safety. Now, more than ever, online degree programs have the capacity to create unprecedented access and opportunities for millions of people, disabled and non-disabled alike. CUNY exemplifies accessible, affordable, and high-level online degree programs, and I truly hope the city continues to invest in them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Lerner, thank you first for sharing that you have a disability. I think you simply being here and saying that out loud is very helpful to a lot of students, as young as kindergarten through adulthood, who very often, don't, and I've seen this in the classroom in high school where students didn't often want to recognize that they had a need. And I think by you recognizing it and saying out loud and saying who you are is that alone, I think, is helpful. And I thank you for sharing some of the challenges you face as someone with a disability. And so I want to start with disabilities. And it's very pleased to hear all of the services and the way you've engaged with CUNY on that. And I heard a lot in the testimony about access. And by the way, we've been joined by Councilmember Felice. I would add, by the way, CUNY graduate, two CUNY adjunct professors. So you've got a lot of CUNY in the room right now. I keep hearing the word access, and this was one of the challenges, as I said in my opening statement. It was a real challenge to do online learning. It was often hard to, on a computer, identify the challenges that students faced. And recognizing that you have great self-advocacy skills, this is obviously something you've been doing for a while and are very successful at winning a grant, there are many students who either may not want to kind of, tell themselves they have a disability. I've heard phrases like, oh, well, I'm over that now that I'm in college, or just maybe don't know how to access Office of Student with Disabilities, and often need the recognition of a professor or a teacher to be engaged in those services. That's something that I recognize at the high school level, and it is something that I know is recognized in the college level. As many presidents have, told me, that I said, how do students access the disability services? And what they say is a professor will often notice a student in class doing X, Y, and Z, or not doing X, Y, and Z. And it was the same thing for mental health services. It was the same thing for food access, when they would notice a kid coming, and I apologize, 14 years in a classroom, used to calling them kids, I mean students, because they're mostly adults now. They'd notice a student with their head down, or a student kind of fatigued, which would lead them to think that there's hunger, or there's mental health need, or there's learning disability. So my main question is, first, how online is CUNY prepared to not just offer services, but identify those who need services, especially if they have a disability, but also if they have a mental health need, recognizing that there's not that same personal interaction online?
I can start. So one of the things that CUNY SPS does an amazing job with is that it's very devoted to universal design. And the thing about universal design is that it's completely, the whole point of it is designed so there is few needs to get accessible, to get services as possible. So if you don't offer an exam, a timed exam, somebody who has time and a half isn't gonna need it.
I'm sorry, I should have clarified. Sorry. Speaking, because you heard the testimony, and I think it was in your testimony too, often we think of disabilities in the physical sense. You need a ramp here. I think that's often how they're perceived, which is also true, but I mean more in, let's say, a learning disability, something that, so please continue.
That's exactly, yeah.
Okay,
so it's
great.
Universal design in higher education. And so when you design things that you assess, you have multiple means of assessment, you have multiple means of learning, you're integrating that into the curriculum already. The other thing is that because CUNY SPS has such an amazing disability studies program, it is completely integrated into teachers, into the professors, and they are able to recognize it very well. But the thing is about having a disability, as somebody who has a learning disability, you really can design education to have as few accommodations as possible. I also want to say that there's, as you guys probably know, there's the CUNY Coalition of Students with Disabilities, CCSD, and they do a lot of self-advocacy work, and they do a lot of work with students with disabilities to try to get them to use the services, even the ones that don't want to. But a lot of it's built in already. I
really love, I think this is the first time in a higher ed hearing or in any education hearing I've heard anyone use universal design, and I love it. And so it sounds like SPS is really engaged in that building from the bottom up. But recognizing that, we all jumped into online learning, and this will get to a second question I have, but how is that being modeled? How is that being used as a model for, let's say, the undergraduate degrees and the community colleges, and how is it integrated to the training that the staff receives, faculty receives?
Thank you for that question. And this is an area that is part of my scope of work in our broader and deeper, more intense focus on online education across all CUNY campuses, to institute standards of quality, which includes universal design in all online classes. So are we where we want to be? No. Are we going to get there? Yes, because we are going to be very intentional about that. And part of the work that my colleagues here have talked about what they're doing on their campuses is the model that we're going to adopt across all of the colleges to ensure consistency for all of our students, regardless of the level of program or the college at which they're enrolled.
You want that?
If I may add.
Please,
also,
please.
It does speak to a lot of the issues related to faculty development as well. We emphasize universal design in our faculty development. We incorporate it. I also mentioned in my testimony that we are very mindful of the ways that a student connects online. They don't just connect to content, they connect to the instructor and they connect to each other. And so that's the issue, is the instructor presence and how the instructor is connecting with the student. We're very mindful of that, and we incorporate that piece also within the faculty development, but definitely more is needed, and we will continue to do so.
Are you developing, okay, I'm going to use like another education term, but a rubric? So because again, and part of this is, it feels as though, and you can correct me, but a lot of the courses are just extensions of what was created, as it was in the testimony. You said we flipped over to, all those numbers flipped during the advent of the pandemic, and that some of these online courses may just be extensions of that, or maybe they're kept in place that were online courses that we flipped to in 2020 and were just held on. But is there a rubric that is being used to assess whether that universal design exists and whether those best practices are being met?
And that's what I did speak about. We have, the Online Excellence Project, where the faculty with instructional designers are developing the courses, and the instructional designers are guided, we are all guided by the, what's called the Online Course Quality Rubric. There are about 50 variables, and incorporated is universal design. So yes, we are guided by a rubric, absolutely.
And if I could speak to that as well. So we have a mix where we have established online programs, such as what yes, Judy and Tracy have talked about. The courses within those have been designed using these rubrics, using Quality Matters standards, totally committed to a quality online learning experience for students. During COVID, there were, as we talked about, many courses that had to be converted on the fly to what we call remote instruction. Those were not developed broadly with the same set of standards. And so part of our work now is to go back and review those courses and determine which are not up to that quality standard, and beginning a revision of those courses to, again, have consistency across the board.
Is that something that's the responsibility of each individual campus, or is there sort of a CUNY-wide group or team who's kind of independently looking at these courses?
Yes and yes.
All right, 2 levels of accountability.
I wanted to add one thing.
Please.
Person Dinowitz. Having grown up with a disabled brother, severely disabled brother, I wanted to make note of what I said before about the disability culture and accessibility. It's a real joy to work at CUNY SPS. I've never been at a higher education institution that centers disability in the way CUNY SPS does, and I think if you ever want to visit, we'd welcome you, and we could share our experience, both faculty, staff, and students, with how that culture's been built.
I'd love, only if Councilmember Brewer comes to the tour with me. I think you live there, right? I think.
May I add one more thing?
You may add as many things as you want.
So this is exactly what my grant project is working on too, that CUNY was very excited to fund, is it's creating, implementing, and assessing the results of disability training for professors. And it's working with Lydia X.Z. Brown, who's one of the leading scholars in this, as well as Professor Cheryl Bergstaller, who's probably the leading expert in the US on universal design in higher education. And so this is something, when I brought it up as an idea, CUNY jumped at and gave me a grant for. And so this is something that not only are they doing a really good job of, they're actively trying to improve as well.
Thank you. And I just want, it sounds like SPS is really doing this work, really involved and very meticulous about it. And my concern is that it's CUNY-wide. I just have one other question. It's data, and I want to thank you. I think there was a lot of data that we requested that you were able to provide. And now and this will be the last thing I ask about disabilities, and I want to give my colleague, Councilmember Brewer, an opportunity to ask some questions, and then I have a bunch more. But do you have data related to number of students, let's say at SPS, online or in person, who receive or applied for accommodations versus the 4-year versus the 2-year, 2-year colleges? And my purpose in asking that is just to see if there's a distinction, if students are kind of falling through the cracks when it comes to receiving accommodations, and understanding that there's more flexibility in online, and you are starting to build universally designed curriculum for these online courses, but also the data related to that, especially for our community colleges. Does that data exist? Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to follow up on your question to get specific data.
Not at a university-wide level, for the reasons that I identified earlier, where we've not had historically a consistent approach to identifying online programs and students who chose to pursue a credential in a fully online format.
Right, but I think you said I want to make sure it's yours.
But going forward, we will, but we don't have any historical data.
I think you had said in your testimony, and I don't want to misquote anyone, and I'm not going to find the testimony. The gap in occupational mapping analysis. So that's to identify where additional online programs are needed. And meet the educational needs of New York City. So is that, as part of that program, include assessing the sort of impact and effectiveness for students with disabilities? Is that kind of part of that?
No, it's really, it looks at market need, and it looks at what the educational, in terms of qualification for employment. It's really looking at those kinds of educational needs, not the specific individual student needs or disability needs, but it's really looking at an identification of where do we need additional academic disciplines represented online.
I'm going to invite you back next month to talk about that at our workforce development hearing, which is next month, October. I'm going to say the 20th, but would CUNY consider, I think more data is good, and the data you provided today was great and very helpful. In the past, there's been other gaps in data. Would CUNY consider assessing the needs of the students with disabilities as part of that, and not just the needs of New York City, which is so vital, and I love that CUNY is really answering that question, is what does New York City need, but assessing the outcomes. And whether it's through employer survey, whether it's through credit accrual, and of course included in that is students with disabilities and graduation rates and their success, are the students who are engaged in these online programs as successful as students who are in the in-person only or in the hybrid models? Would CUNY consider including those sort of metrics as they develop these two programs?
Absolutely. I mean, outcomes are everything. So if you're not getting the desired outcomes from your efforts, then you need to change your efforts. So we will be monitoring all of those kinds of things. It's going to take a while for us to have useful data because we're going to be building a number of programs. We're still coming out of COVID. We have numerous courses to redesign. But yes, looking at the outcomes, the student learning outcomes, the graduation rates, the persistent rates, the employment rates of students in on-ground and online programs is central to our efforts.
Yeah, and that's, I think, central to our role here in the council too, which is, ensuring that the programs that we're supporting or we're funding, and I'm here with the chair of oversight, which is great, that they are effective. So I think and I think the state would have the same, the same interest in ensuring that these programs, which sound wonderful, right? Making this new online learning work, ensuring students with disabilities get the services, and that they're meeting the needs of New York City, that they're actually effective. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Brewer for some questioning, and then I have another round of questions.
Thank you very much. My day with John Malesko at SBS was very special. There were like 4 students. They were all phenomenal. And of course, I guess he's the godfather of SBS, and the godfather is ASAP, and the godfather of all of us. We're all great, but I don't know, he's my hero. So a couple questions. Just we visited before the pandemic, so it was way before. Did the Department of Education, and maybe you asked this already, ever call you for assistance? No. Is that the answer? In other words, pandemic arrives, they have no idea what to do, and you know exactly what to do. They never called you to say, how does your school operate? Maybe we could actually learn something from you?
I don't know that any of us has total knowledge.
Yeah, but you
of
would have
that.
been the persons to call. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, well, so just,
I know you're
I'm
trying
in
to be
my
nice.
7th week at CUNY.
Okay.
So there's an immense gap in my historical knowledge.
Okay.
And so,
But even now, as they are setting up, apparently, and to their credit, some online capacity for students who don't want to be, for whatever reason, in person, in the last 7 weeks, they haven't called you. The reason I say this is that DOE should call you because you have a model that works. So maybe you should reach out to them, since they can't figure out how to call you, and say, we have a model that works, and something to think about, because they really don't know what they're doing, just FYI. Then I just want to pick up on what the chair was asking. How does one go about, because you have a success, there's no question about it. So the question is, I know you're in the process of evaluating it. Can you just describe a little bit more? I know you talked about it, but that's so important, because then also, are you doing any kind of intellectual property? In other words, getting paid for your success by other universities around the country, or even DOE could pay you. That would be an idea. So just to talk a little bit more about how you do the evaluation, because that is the key to all of this, I think. How you're going about evaluation of the amazing success.
well, that is a complicated question.
Well, just a little bit about it, so.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we are really in the process of understanding the baseline of what we have.
Right.
Because we've not historically done that
Right.
institution-wide.
I heard you say that to the chair. Yeah.
Right. And so as part of that work, as we identify what we have, and then we're looking too at assessing what the resources are and where the success stories are across the campuses. So as you well know, we've got 2 of those here,
Right.
drawing on their expertise and what they've been doing well to amplify and expand that across the campuses so that we're not replicating or duplicating or replacing what's already working well. We're magnifying, amplifying that so that we benefit from the expertise. We're really very, very early in the process of both identification and assessment, but in tools of those metrics that we'll use, we'll be using the OSCAR is the acronym for SUNY and Quality Matters. Some of those that are nationally recognized standards around course design, course delivery, to, that'll be the starting point for how we look broadly at what's happening, and then creating those additional standards institution-wide that then we begin to hold the campuses accountable for.
Okay. And so will you be doing this, or an outside evaluator or another entity at CUNY? Who would actually be doing this? I know it costs money sometimes, so that's why.
Yeah,
it's
it costs money, and
concern.
that may depend. We are, that is part of our strategic plan,
Okay.
and determining the pace at which we can cover all this ground with our internal capacity as opposed to outsourcing some of it? It may be a mixture of things.
Aldrin Bonilla was the deputy borough president who toured with me. He's now number 2 at the Fund for the City of New York. The Fund for the City of New York. You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
I do want to make a distinction here, just a clarification. I think Chair Dinowitz, if I may, when you were talking about your frustrations with teaching, with assessing the student online, I do want to make a distinction between like a Zoom session, a Zoom remote class, versus a fully online course when we're talking about the Oscar and rubric and quality matters.
Talking about the courses.
Because they're different designs, and the Zoom class is more of a remote class teaching versus the intentionally designed asynchronous course where a student navigates with the guidance, of course, of the professor, where the student navigates through the course online 24/7, anytime.
I'm not talking about the courses. So. The other thing is just technology, which how have you found it has to be restored in 5 years or less? Or how? I mean, I know that you started out with excellent tech, but how does it work for the student, for the family, for the et cetera? You've got, we've got lots of issues DOE is dealing with. So what are your experiences with the tech? Does it change? Are you able to keep updated? Does it work for the students, et cetera? Are there no issues at all, maybe?
You want to talk about how it's working on your campuses? Yep.
I should say that during the pandemic, we purchased a lot of laptops and had a laptop loaner program for students to make sure that students who couldn't afford a laptop had access to one. Demand was very high, and we continued to purchase them. We've had significant supply chain problems.
You've had what problems?
Supply chain problems.
Supply chain problems, yeah.
But we were able to provide our students with them, but there were some delays in getting staff and faculty laptops because of supply chain issues. I know the university is pursuing a new learning management system. Kim
A new what? I'm
A
sorry.
learning management system. Kim can speak about that, an upgrade from Blackboard. But we have a terrific IT director, and I feel as if the campus is always acquiring new tools. I think syncing the tools is the internal challenge that we have to make sure we're not replicating purchases or underusing particular tools that we purchase.
I'll do the second round. Okay. I just have not just, I have a bunch of questions, but I have a question around some finances, but I'll start with like the student end. I've spoken with some students in my district who have struggled with, there's a technology fee that students have to pay, $250, yeah. And is that the same technology fee whether you're in person or fully remote? Every student pays?
I think a student pays a tech fee at every campus, yeah.
I think
We're,
changing the student services fee to less at SPS.
We can find out if they're gonna,
I think they're planning on lowering the student services because there's the tech
Student tech
fee.
fee, yeah.
The student, I think they're planning on lowering it. That's what I've heard through the grapevine, but I can't say that for sure.
oh, I love rumors.
We will
Don't worry, you're not under oath. You can.
verify that.
Right, because the cost on the student end, recognizing that high school is different than graduate school or school for professional studies, college, in any degree. My students were at a severe disadvantage because many of them didn't have, the TI-83, the TI-84 at home, or didn't have the same technology at home that other students may have needed. They literally need this calculator to take the test. And so can you talk a little more? CUNY provides laptops or technology to every student who needs it. What's the threshold? How does that work?
Well, at John Jay, if they request, if they demonstrate a need, they get a laptop. In some cases, they actually lent them hotspots because they didn't have access to the network, to the Wi-Fi.
And that's at a cost to the university, or is that some sort of federal grant for that?
Judy, was that COVID specific?
Well, that was COVID specific during that, but then there
Is
are.
it continuing?
Can you just make sure to talk into the microphone, because I'm sure online people can.
Sorry, I was asking her to clarify whether those measures were COVID-specific or they're continuing post-COVID, because in some cases, colleges did certain things because everybody needed the technology, and in some cases, those stopped or continued, sometimes because of the availability of federal funds. So I was asking her what the status was.
So on when needed, but
Yeah.
when needed, I can verify, but I know during COVID, absolutely. But I do know from our CIO that he said that when necessary, when there's a need, they certainly try to accommodate.
Because those COVID funds have either run out or are running out. And at some point, if you continue the same program and the same, accommodation for students who need this technology to engage in online learning but struggle with the finances, is CUNY already prepared to continue that program and to eat the cost of that? I mean, what's the plan going forward for the next few years? I know recognizing this isn't like a budget meeting, but I think that's important information.
I'm just going to speak about CUNY SPS. We've always had a laptop loaner program, and we've always had a hotspot loaner program. We had to scale it during the pandemic, but in terms of the system level, I'll turn it over to Kim.
Yeah, I really can't speak to that. I don't know whether that's in the works or not.
Okay, well, the committee would love more information about that, given that you are working on expanding online programming to all the campuses and the course offerings, which is necessarily going to mean that more students are going to need the technology. And again, with COVID funds running out, the money has to come from somewhere, or you're going to choose not to provide as many students with technology, which would be terrible, given that there's so many needs our students have. A few other financial questions, and this was interesting to me that for online courses, out-of-state students pay the in-state tuition price. Is that correct?
That is correct, although it's changing in winter 2023.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, do you know what led to that decision in the first place, and why is it waiting almost over a year to change?
Probably John.
John retired. My understanding is that the CUNY Board of Trustees considered the issue of out-of-state tuition for out-of-state students, and that their decision was to increase tuition again beginning in winter 2023 for out-of-state students for online learning.
Right, because right now they don't differentiate, but you're saying in winter 2023 they're going to start differentiating between in-state and out-of-state online learners.
Online programs, yes.
Online, right,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, I think that's...
Can get you a follow-up on the amount and...
Yeah, just interested in knowing why there was no distinction to begin with, and why it's waiting for, again, over a year to, make that switch.
I would say that when CUNY SPS is the college that offered the first online program in 2006, that was the agreement put in place. I think it was to reach these students with some credit and no degree, irrespective of where they resided. As we plan to scale online programs and reach beyond New York City and New York State, there was a concern, I think, about taxpayer money supporting out-of-state students. But again, I think there's a resolution of the board that we can send your way, so you have all the details.
Yeah, would love it, because, out-of-state people are great, but in-state people are better. A lot of New York pride, what can I say? So you just mentioned reaching out to people out of state, reaching out. What does reaching out look like to CUNY?
I can talk about CUNY SPS.
Well, I'll phrase it differently. If I went, hey Siri, I want to learn online, I'm going to get University of Phoenix, I'm going to get Capella University, I'm going to get DeVry, maybe even Trump University, I don't know, but I don't think, Siri's heard me. But I won't get CUNY, and I tried.
Well, I would say at John Jay, because our courses, our online programs leverage our unique niche in criminal and social justice, we would attract those in these fields to John Jay. I mean, criminal justice, in emergency management, in international crime and justice. So we have actually attracted students from, nationally and globally. So in that case, we do have something unique that we offer.
Do you have a budget? I'm talking more about like a budget for
marketing,
advertising, for Google links, social media. I'm showing my age, I know.
I mean, they would, whatever social media is used, I mean, they would somehow find it. It's not specific to, it's out there. And the name is known, and John Jay has the reputation that it does.
But speaking more broadly about marketing efforts for online institution-wide, that is also part of this next phase of things, is to developing a broader marketing strategy and investment in marketing dollars to use social media and really digital advertising is the best platform if you're trying to attract online learners, so through LinkedIn or Indeed or other kinds of platforms. What that looks like on a program-by-program basis or college-to-college, where you've got niche types of programs, you're not going to see it as broadly as you would where we're trying to elevate awareness of CUNY and CUNY's online programs. So it's a little bit of a different strategy. We have not traditionally invested a large amount of resources in those marketing efforts. Institutions like University of Phoenix or Arizona State or Southern New Hampshire that are going to pop up all the time invest in the neighborhood of $250 million a year in marketing.
That sounds like a big number.
Yeah, we're not gonna be in that space.
Right, but though I won't get into the cost of online advertising, but I am interested in what the budget is, because I was just speaking with one of the colleges and people from one of the local community colleges yesterday, and they're telling me about students who it was one of someone I know, about their family, and that they looked online for whatever program, and they live in the Bronx, and they went to Westchester Community College. And nothing against Westchester Community College, but that Bronx student should be going to a school in New York City. And that's not an uncommon story I've heard, where people are looking online and doing a search for just like a general, associate's degree, and what they get back is, advertisements for Westchester, or they get the Google search for Westchester. Would love to know what that marketing looks like, because time and again we hear about great programs CUNY does, incredible work y'all do, and if no one knows about it, or if people only know about it because they know to look for it, like at John Jay, I'm really interested in CUNY, being more broadly known to people as the place to go for online learning, as a place to go for criminal justice, instead of just for those who kind of already know it, or already have those college counselors who told them about it, or for the students who did 45 hours of research online. I know Councilmember Brewer had more questions, so I'm going to turn it back to her.
Thank you very much. Just maybe this got talked about, but this community of council members, to their credit, is very diverse, and language is an issue. So how do you handle language issues? It should be easier online, but nothing is easy. So how is it different or not in terms of language? Do you use different ways of communicating? How does it work, if at all, for ELLs or language learners who may speak English but need other support? I don't know, I'm just asking how it works, if at all.
I can tell you at CUNY SPS, our new interim dean, Jorge Silva Perez, is interested in dual language courses. So at this point, it's a new initiative, and he's speaking with our academic directors and faculty about it. But until his arrival, we hadn't had any dual language online courses.
But now you do.
It's one of our goals in our strategic plan to develop, especially in the healthcare fields and psychology. His first goal was to develop a medical terminology course in Spanish.
Do you have any idea about how many students would utilize such dual language, or you're still trying to figure that out? My guess is you'd have a lot.
I would imagine we have a lot, but I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, just in terms of professors and teaching staff and so on, maybe I should know this, but are they affiliated with other parts of the CUNY-wide system, or is it just dedicated to your staff? How does that work? Just in terms of the staffing of SPS.
So CUNY SPS, the faculty model involves consortial faculty. So faculty from across the university have and continue to teach our online courses through a consortial arrangement, although we do have resident faculty at CUNY SPS, tenured and adjunct.
Okay. And then maybe you discussed this earlier, but I know, obviously I know John Jay very well. So the university-wide, there are more and more classes that are online. I know there are quite a few, in different places. So again, are you consulted about that? Are they on their own? How does that work in terms of information sharing? I know what you teach on Jay. I know about John Jay, but go ahead.
Well, I know that I've often consulted with various people at SPS, and we all collaborate through the CUNY Academic Technology Committee, which meets monthly. So we do share a lot of information, and we're very fortunate because SPS has really taken the lead in their online teaching essentials workshop. And although we also created a workshop, they really have been primary in helping to provide the necessary training for our faculty.
Okay. I think it would be helpful for all of us who allocate funding to CUNY through that committee to know if there are tech issues. Obviously, capital funding can address them. I try what I can do for John Jay. But I'm just letting you know that's a resource that you should not forget about, because with all due respect, coming from the tech world, I know that the hardware is as big a problem as sometimes the curriculum. Yes. So you should make sure that that group that you just described is saying very clearly what some of the issues are. It would be helpful for us to know.
Sure. Right. And I do want to say on behalf of John Jay that we do very much appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member. So I want to thank you again, Dr. Siegenthaler, Dr. Khan, Ms. Mead, and especially to you, Ms. Lerner. It's very inspiring when students come, especially when they share so much of their personal story. Thank you, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and getting some of that information about the data that was discussed today, what that accountability looks like, and how you're sharing best practices with other institutions inside and outside of CUNY. But thank you again. I'd like to call our next panel. Bob Ubell, Ms. Rebecca Watts from Western Governors University, and from the University of Colorado Boulder, joining us via satellite, Robert McDonald. I think it's called circle back to the same joke. I think it's a thing. All right, while we get Robert McDonald online, Mr. Ubell, you may begin. Yeah, and just make sure you talk right into that microphone.
I have hearing aids on, and sometimes these microphones don't do well with me. So maybe without the microphone.
Give us one second. We're going to turn off the in-room audio. We're going to leave the mics on so people online can continue to hear, but turn off the in-room audio so it doesn't interfere with your hearing. Okay? Great.
I'm Ron Bell. I'm Vice Dean Emeritus of Online Learning. Of Brooklyn College. So this is the appropriate place for me to be. Online learning has emerged as a major force in higher education. The latest data reveals have earned degrees online. I've lost my place. Sorry. Allowing them to participate more fully in the nation's productive business rather than being sidelined to marginal labor, moving from fast food counters to more rewarding roles in our post-industrial economy. While 40% of online students work full-time, double that, 80% of online students are full-time employees. Colleges with a long and effective history of delivering remote programs understand that student services and student access available to on-campus students should also equally be available to online students. College is not possible unless it is made convenient enough to fit into the limited time and space students have to devote to their studies, especially those who work. What's especially true for students working full-time jobs, for parents working and caring for children, and for others who cannot hop onto their cars and drive simply to the local campus. Student services on campus, study centers, career services, healthcare, clubs, and support for learning and students with disabilities are widely available on most campuses, but few colleges offer the same expansive attention to remote learners as they do online. On-campus students
You please continue.
Okay. On-campus students are coddled with high-end services, with 20% of higher ed budgets going to student services and related costs at state and city schools, and 30% of private schools. I have a thought about this as I'm giving my testimony. If online budgets were equal to what's available on campus, then on-campus students would get as much services as the online campus students do. In contrast, vital student support often is an afterthought online. In a literature search, I found that just a handful of references covered online student services, with none quoting how much institutions spend on them. A sure sign that very little attention is paid, and distressingly, little is invested. It's as if online students don't need anything but digital classrooms taught by virtual instructions, Most schools act as if remote learners can get away entirely on their own, like teenagers playing video games. Online must be essential to the university as on campus. In the minds of senior faculty, presidents, and provosts, online must be equal to on-campus services and infrastructure. Resources that are devoted to on-campus education must be devoted equally to remote learning. Faculty and student services and training, quality education, and the same financial backing that is given to on-campus must be given equally to students and faculty online. Everything that is delivered on campus must be delivered equally to online students. On-campus lectures and other activities available on campus must be delivered equally to online students. We must provide remote students with exactly the same services, exactly the same resources, exactly the same financial support and training that we give to our on-campus students.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Rebecca Watts, Regional Vice President of Western Governors University.
Thank you, Chair Dinowitz and members of the Committee on Higher Education. My name is Rebecca Watts, and I serve as Vice President for Western Governors University, a nonprofit, non-public, competency-based online university founded in 1997 by a group of bipartisan governors. They came together to create a new model of learning to remove the barriers of time and space that negatively impacted adult working learners. Just as importantly, our founders were committed to creating relevant learning experiences aligned to the skills and expertise needed for the nation's most in-demand careers: health professions, education, information technology, and business, ensuring excellent quality while keeping costs as low as possible. At WGU, we are honored to serve 1,024 students across the 5 boroughs who are among the 3,034 WGU current students enrolled statewide, with representation from every county. And we are extremely proud of our 1,638 alum in New York City, who are part of our network of 6,016 alumni statewide. WGU currently serves 131,490 students across the 50 states, territories, and on military bases around the world, U.S. military bases around the world. Our alumni network includes 288,045 graduates, a number that grows each month. To meet the goals of the founding of the university, our founders knew they had to develop an innovative model, leveraging online technology, while delivering learning in a unique competency-based model that offers each student the ability to accelerate learning at her or his own individual pace. Essential to the WGU model is the ability for students to access faculty and learning resources virtually in an online experience. As is the case for any college or university providing online learning, there are key elements that must be in place to make the learning experience effective. Online learning must be intentionally and carefully designed to leverage the learning modality for optimal student learning. It will not be effective if it is delivered as a recorded or broadcast version of a traditional classroom lecture. Highly effective practices include providing technical support information at the outset of a course and reinforcing it throughout the learning journey, engaging students in learning environments, including interaction with peers through discussions and work groups, breaking learning into smaller segments to establish a pattern of activity and due dates, establishing expectations for online participation, communication, and netiquette, demonstrating to students how their learning will apply in real-world settings, and providing prompt, detailed feedback to reinforce key concepts and skill development. While most degree program requirements at WGU are achieved exclusively in the online environment, there are program-specific site-based requirements for education, nursing, and health professions majors. WGU is grateful to its many partners in New York for supporting our students as they move through those required field and clinical experiences. I want to call out some highly innovative work we're doing to help address key talent needs across several sectors. WGU has partnered with the United States Department of Education on a pilot program using federal work-study funds to support educator paraprofessionals on the pathway to degree attainment and educator licensure. This pilot holds special promise for the urgent needs in hard-to-staff schools and to strengthen the talent pipeline of special educators. To address our community's urgent need for nurses, WGU offers a baccalaureate degree in nursing and master's degree programs to help prepare family nurse practitioners, mental health nurse practitioners, and nurse educators, the latter of which can support faculty staffing needs for nursing education programs at community colleges across the state, including CUNY and SUNY institutions. As part of our work to strengthen the talent pipeline in tech fields, WGU partners with Perscholas, a national information technology training provider based in the Bronx. Committed to equitable access to education, Perscholas has a mission to advance economic equity through rigorous training for tech careers and to connect skilled talent to leading businesses. WGU has an articulation agreement in place with Perscholas that articulates credit toward a baccalaureate degree to learners completing Perscholas programs and enrolling at WGU. In another exciting partnership related to tech talent, WGU is honored to have received grant funding from Reboot Representation, a national organization committed to doubling the number of Black, Latina, and Native American women holding baccalaureate degrees in tech fields by 2025. Reboot Representation's CEO, Dwana Franklin Davis, is based in New York City. Through Reboot's generous grant funding, WGU has launched a new initiative, Building Bridges and Breaking Barriers for Women in Tech. We provide scholarships, mentorships, and holistic support to each student in the program that is participating in the initiative. These examples of partnerships and collaboration focus on the needs of learners and the needs of employers and underscore the power of online learning delivered with intentionality, purpose, and forethought. I thank you for your time, for your commitment, and for your vision for New York City's future. I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is Robert McDonald online? I heard a rumor he is.
It's not letting me get
All right,
in. There we go.
hear you, and now you're muted again.
We'll try one more time. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we sure can.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Good morning from Boulder, Colorado. My name's Robert McDonald, and I'm the Senior Vice Provost for Online and Extended Education and Dean of University Libraries here at the University of Colorado Boulder. First off, I would like to thank Chair Dinowitz and the committee members for inviting me here today to provide a firsthand account of some of the online education innovations that we are delivering from CU Boulder, the flagship campus of the University of Colorado system. Because of our limitations in time today, I will jump right into the main online innovations that I want to describe for you. First, I will describe the difference between a traditional master's program and the performance-based admissions process we use in some of our online education programs. In a traditional master's programs, students go through a rigorous application process that usually requires transcripts, TOEFL or GRE exam, an application essay, and letters of reference. Those who are accepted can wait up to 3 to 6 months to be notified that they are accepted, and up to a year for classes to begin. And fees are paid up front and may not always be recoverable if things do not go well for the student in the program. Such a system favors those with money and time and discourages those who do not fit into the traditional profile of a master's degree candidate. That includes those who take our online master's programs who are working professionals, caregivers, those who need to jumpstart their careers immediately, and those from financially disadvantaged backgrounds. Our performance-based pathways for our master's programs seek to include more students who can qualify for admissions and aim to eliminate the fear of rejection and the typical single annual admissions point for those who need our master's level degree programs. Our current 3 programs that are delivering performance-based admissions are MS in Electrical Engineering, MS in Data Science, and our ME in Engineering Management all take advantage of this performance-based admissions process. In addition to this innovation, these 3 programs are all built to be certificate stackable programs. This means that each program is built of 3 to 4 graduate certificates that, when combined, equal the master's degree in this discipline. What does this mean for the student? It means that a student can start with our performance-based admissions gateway courses, usually 3 courses, starting with a single course, and can understand what is needed for success in the program. This way, the student only pays for 1 or 2 courses at a time and knows by the end of the 3rd course whether they have been admitted to the master's program. Additionally, at each step of 3 to 4 courses, the student earns a graduate certificate in a segment of the course of study. An example of this is our graduate certificate in in power electronics that makes up our MS in electrical engineering. The point here is that the student can start a course at any point, determine once they are finished with the course whether they want to try to take the course for credit, and then determine what their next steps are in the program based on their performance and achievement. Our performance-based degree programs are all taught by our faculty from the University of Colorado Boulder, but they are highly automated and supported by our course facilitators who are often teaching assistants in those programs. This has enabled us to create all three of these programs at a lower cost to the student at $20,000 for the entire degree program. This was accomplished through faculty pushing hard. Yeah, sorry.
Please continue.
All right. This was accomplished through faculty pushing hard for innovation in these degree programs, as well as a partnership with the scaled MOOC platform, Coursera. Since we first launched Performance-Based Pathways in 2019, we have learned and continue to learn so much about making graduate degree programs available to a broader range of students. Our Performance Pathways open opportunities for more people to benefit from our degree offerings, and we offer our courses 6 times a year in 8 weeks terms so that students can begin when their schedules permit. This means that the student can get started at any point within an 8-week period, and the degree they receive is the same as any of our master's degrees offered in traditional residential programs. This emphasis on building out the best online master's level credentials is based on our transformative faculty-led initiative called Academic Futures, and in other projects and inputs in which our faculty clearly stated that they wanted to build online degree programs that would expand the reach of our residential campus and that would emphasize the credentials and areas of excellence that our campus is most known for providing. In my written documentation for this testimony, I will provide the committee a link to our Academic Futures plan, as well as to a recent article in Inside Higher Ed that describes our advances and progress on our current programs. Our University of Colorado system has recently invested funds for the next 5 years that will enable our Boulder campus to create a pipeline of master's level degree programs, many of which will work like the ones I've described today, and that will enrich the lives of a broad range of students who want to study with our world-renowned faculty at CU Boulder in an asynchronous online setting. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with your committee today, and I look forward to answering any questions that you might have concerning our online programs at the University of Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Ubell, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, good.
I've just taken out my hearing aids because the electronic dissonance occurs between the microphone and these hearing aids. So if you speak just a little louder, I'm fine.
Absolutely. You can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So what do you believe constitutes a measure of quality in online learning?
That's a very good question. I think for most universities, graduation rates are the key to quality. If a university can claim high graduation rates, then they're doing their job, because students who drop out of their online learning program are not achieving what the university intended and not achieving what the students intended. So my measure of high quality is a high graduation rate.
So I will, I think I said in my opening statement, I'm in the little more skeptical camp, having, done the online learning, and in,
well,
I'll ask it this way, because I don't want to be mean to any city agency, but the beyond graduation rate, how do you measure the quality of the education that's being given in the class, and how do the assessments, which determine whether you pass or don't pass the class, how do those compare to the in-person learning?
Well, if a student passes through their entire higher education experience in 4 years or 6 years, however long it takes, they've passed all of the barriers and all of the opportunities for the student, and they've done, and the students have done well enough that a high percentage graduate, that school has done a marvelous job. It has taken students who would ordinarily not have the experience of going to college because they couldn't, if they're working, they can't go to college, or there are obstacles of going to college, if they have children that they take care of, if they have jobs. So graduation is the number one end. Of course, all along the way, assessments and other responsible ways of determining how good those programs are probably equally as good. But for me, the number one triumph for higher education and for the student is that they graduate.
Oh, great. I'll say this, kind of sort of following up on what Councilmember Brewer was talking about, what the opportunities are for sharing best practices, because as was mentioned in CUNY's testimony, a lot of the good online courses are built from the ground up. But we have education systems that, especially during the pandemic, flipped over to a sort of online model, and to put it delicately, were encouraging professors or teachers to pass students when perhaps they didn't necessarily meet the thresholds. So, perhaps, Ms. Watts, you can talk about what do assessments look like online, and how do we ensure that those are of the same quality and rigor and academic standards that we typically expect in in-person learning?
At WGU, how we assure that is that our programs are designed with employers and industry leaders side by side, whether it's any of our 4 schools or colleges. And so those assessments are designed to meet what the expectation of employers are for the skills, competencies, masteries, and expertise that they want people to have on day one on the job. So it's, we don't look at this work in a silo. We collaborate with the people who hire our graduates, and a big measure of success for us is the satisfaction of our employers that hire our grads. We survey them every year, and they report high degrees of satisfaction and answer the question, would you hire another WGU grad? Consistently, they say yes.
And that's like a systemic survey, or is that sort of anecdotal information you have?
It is a systemic survey, and we use third party to administer that for us.
That's great. No, I'm serious. It's as an educator, we love assessments, and we love that's part of it. That's part of assessing the quality of your program. So your program is working. Are there? Mr. Ubell, you could speak to this. Is there scholarly literature? What does scholarly literature say about the results of students taking online courses versus versus in-person learning?
Well, I think the difference between online and in-person has been faced by online learning from the beginning. There's always been a doubt about online as opposed to on campus, as if on campus is the gold standard. But on campus is not the gold standard. On campus has failed many, many students. Many, many students drop out on campus. Many, many students have not achieved what they hope to achieve on campus. So to use on campus as the gold standard against which online is measured, I think is a false way of looking at them. So each modality has its own measure, and each modality should be measured by its own achievements. For example, in Western Governors, their achievement standards are by their partner employees. I don't think any other on-campus school has that as a guideline. So to measure on campus as opposed to online is not a very wise approach.
Sort of like a paradigm shift. It's, we've been doing school one way for a little while, and suddenly shift to online. It's certainly tough for a lot of us. So, Mr. McDonald, were you met with a lot of resistance internally at CU Boulder in starting MSEE or your subsequent online degrees?
Yes, I think it's a good measure. I think, especially in today's economy, when employers are concerned about the ability of their students to work effectively in industry, I think it is a good measure.
Yeah, and given that paradigm shift, Mr. McDonald, were you met with resistance internally at CU Boulder when you started your programs? If we could just make sure to unmute him as well. You're good.
This is mainly a residential campus, so there are a lot of faculty here that originally, and I would say more pre-pandemic, were not that interested in online. But I'll tell you, the programs that I just described for you all came from those faculty and their departments. The curriculum comes from their curriculum committee in those departments. And that's what makes them so strong, is the strength of our faculty and what they've come up with for these designed from the ground up online offerings that do follow a lot of the best practices that we heard from Cooney today in setting up universal design, as well as rubrics for learning. And as my esteemed colleague said before, it needs to be judged on its own, because it is a different thing for a different type of student who still wants that type of graduate degree and or those certificates, because I think graduation is a great metric. That's what I want for all my students. But we have found from those degrees, as well as from our post-bac degree in computer science, sometimes people just want a few courses in certain areas, like say power electronics, and that's what they're looking for in their career, right?
And so whether you're talking about credit accrual or, as Mr. Ubell suggested, graduation rates, this short term of 8 weeks that starts 6 times a year, how is that impacted, whether, the success criteria, I guess one of them being graduation rates or credit accrual or a certification, how has that model impacted those measures of success?
I don't know that we've had our course, our degrees in place long enough to really assess that from the 8-week kind of entry point. But what I do know from anecdotally from talking to the students in those is that that helps them, because almost all of them are working somewhere full-time or part-time doing these programs. And it gives them more flexibility rather than it being a whole semester. So that way, if they need to take an 8-week course and then for the next 8-week cycle drop out a minute because they got family issues or other things with work, they can. They're not tied up the whole semester, and it breaks the year up into more manageable chunks.
And can you just tell us what you mean by the stackability of your master's degree programs? What are the benefits? What is it, and what are the benefits of a stackable degree program?
Sure. The benefits there are that each of those masters that I described are made up of 3 or 4 graduate certificates. So as I mentioned before, sometimes students will just come for the graduate certificate, but the benefit is as they move along through those 3 or 4 courses, they're obtaining a graduate certificate that they can take back to showcase to their employer, the progress they're making on the degree program, but also show them what they're learning in those certificates in those different tracks. And then as you stack those together into 3 or 4 graduate certificates, you end up with the full master's degree. And so it's a good point for the students in that they're always taking some kind of credential with them from the program, even if they decide not to finish the full master's degree. And that's a key benefit to the student, I think, is having the credential along the way.
Thank you. And Ms. Watts, can you tell us more about the profile of your students, like the average age, for example? Are these typical college students, college-age students, we think, right after high school?
So I'll give you our mean age, which is 34, and as with any measure of central tendency, we have 18-year-olds and we have 70-year-olds that are attending and graduating from WGU. More than 70% of our students come with some college but no baccalaureate degree. Many come from community colleges and have gotten into the workforce with their associate degree and want to continue to advance in their careers, but can't walk away from that living wage. So more than 70% work full-time, are raising families, are community volunteers. So this is very much because of the asynchronous nature of our model, it fits into the spaces of their lives by their tenacity and their commitment and their hard work.
Can I tell you, between you and Ms. Lerner, like all these phrases, UDL, measures of central tendency, I feel like I'm back. This is great. I love it. So you have a range of ages and experiences, and so what is the cost of tuition? What are the fees? The fees
For our undergraduate programs, let me talk a little bit about our structure. And it's really very different from UCU Boulder. I always say that backwards. It's very different. So we have 6-month terms, and students can start at the first of any month. So when they meet the admissions requirements, they have to meet it by the 15th of the month, and then they can start on that next month. They start a 6-month term. We have a flat rate, no cap tuition for each 6-month term. It varies a little bit by program, but on average, it's $3,700 per 6-month term, as many courses as a student can complete in that 6-month period, and that includes all fees and learning resources. So no books on top of that, no book costs at all on top of that.
Sorry, I got scared when you said no books.
No,
There's a table, by the way, at your local library, there's a table, there should be, that says banned books table. You can pick up a free book or borrow a free book, so I just had like a little fear.
All our learning resources are electronic.
There you go.
And there is that the fee for the learning resources is included in that average $3,700. For master's degrees, it's a little bit more. It's like $3,850 average.
And lastly, in line with some of the questions I was asking of CUNY, how do you ensure that students are engaged, especially those who have a learning disability or need some sort of accommodation, and can you talk if your lessons are universally designed to meet the needs of all learners?
So it's an individual program at WGU. We have a differentiated faculty model. There is one faculty role, graduate prepared in the discipline, and their sole job is to be a one-on-one mentor for their student. So they spend individual time at least once a week in a live session with the student, not teaching them courses, helping them plan their program of study, identifying what struggles they may be having. The second faculty role are the course instructors, and they are the folks who teach the actual courses. And then there's a third faculty role that are the evaluators. So neither the mentor nor the course instructor grades the student's work. We have common rubrics across, and we have common syllabi across the university. So every student in every course is meeting the same standard. But how they get there is differentiated and individualized. Course instructors, it's on-demand, one-on-one, tutoring time, and we have, right now at WGU, 1,996 students who are being provided accommodations based on their identified disabilities.
I want to thank you three for coming. You really do bring a lot of expertise, and I want to thank you for the work that you've done with CUNY in the past, and of course, in line with my statement to CUNY, encourage if there are online models that are working, especially for students who need accommodations or have disabilities, encourage the continued conversation with the institutions so you can pick up best practices, so they can pick up best practices, and really provide a diversity of learning opportunities for our students. And thank you again for coming.
Great job.
Okay, for the next panel, we have Ms. Penny Lewis from PSC CUNY and Joe Scarali, DPS Dean, Online Education, and Dean, Berkeley College, School of Business. And just to make sure, John Versani is not here? No, okay, and I apologize if the pronunciation is incorrect, but Salimatu Dumbuya? Okay. You may begin.
Okay, thank
you.
So much. So thank you, Chairman Dinowitz and Councilmember Brewer as well, for the opportunity to testify here today. I'm Penny Lewis, the Secretary of the Professional Staff Congress, CUNY, and a faculty member at the School of Labor and Urban Studies, and actually a former faculty. Our school used to be affiliated with the School of Professional Studies. Although I was always an in-person instructor at SPS, I have taught hybrid courses and have recently taught a class in a program that offers a fully online certificate. We have heard from CUNY and see that CUNY is committed to expanding its online degree programs and presence, and we come to you to express our concerns about the possible directions this is already taking and our sense of some of the best practices, which we've also heard about from other people here today, that should be in place as any expansion is considered. My written testimony has a lot more details, and I'm just going to speak to some of the more general questions and areas of concern here. First, we are deeply concerned that CUNY will explore expansion of online education as a cost savings path, when in fact, as I think we've heard about, when done well, online education demands greater investment in faculty training and support, smaller class sizes, technical support, and student supports. Further, we're concerned that any investment in online not negatively impact our critical in-person education, which we believe is the modality that is best suited to the vast majority of the students that we serve at CUNY, which is not to take away from the very important services that online education gives to many students, which we've also heard about today, and I'll speak a little more about that important role. In general, we feel we need more transparency and consistent consulting that a hearing like this begins to open up, but within the institution itself, between the CUNY administration, governance, and union leaders concerning the expansion of online programs, and especially the operations of CUNY Online, which is a program that we didn't really hear anything about. I don't think we heard anything about today. But it's been our understanding that the CUNY Online initiative is the vehicle through which the online education at CUNY is expanding at this moment. And we have a lot of specific questions about CUNY Online, as I know does the University Faculty Senate. And in the written testimony, we have a number of questions that have been developed about the CUNY Online program. So it would be good for us to learn more about CUNY Online and whether or not that is the vehicle through which online programs are really expanding. So thank you. So I'll just say a few more things. For faculty, prepping online courses takes longer than in person. It was good to hear that John Jay keeps its course caps, but many of our university classes don't. We have people teaching 25, 35, 40, 100, and hundreds of people in online classes. The 1-to-12 ratio is actually the one that we have heard is the best for teaching online. Chair, as you know, working with students, there's not a one-size-fits-all model. And as we've heard from our friend at Boulder, that online education is not necessarily for everybody, that it's good for certain students. And so we want to make sure that all of our students succeed, and we want to make sure that there's enough support, the vetting of students, and the support for faculty and courses so that it will not erode academic standards and decrease student learning and success at teaching. Finally, I'll just say that we recognize that remote work remote education allows students who need it the opportunity to better manage work-life issues. So many CUNY students are juggling jobs, child, elder care, and remote degrees are attractive. At the PSC, we believe these should not be barriers. As you know, in last year's budget, we advocated for free tuition and expanding access to affordable childcare. In the statewide New Deal for CUNY legislation, which has been supported by the council, we are asking for more full-time faculty, infrastructure investment, and greater access to mental health counselors for students. We hope that you and CUNY will address these key issues that we believe are barriers to attending in-person classes in advance of efforts that minimize in-person teaching. Thank you.
Thank you. You may begin. Thank you.
I'm not sure if the mic is on now. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, actually now, Chair Dinowitz and Councilmember Brewer and any other esteemed New York City Council Committee on higher education members who may be online. It's a great honor to be here. I am Joseph Scarali, and I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to appear before you today in my capacity as Dean for Online Education at Berkeley College. Berkeley College has a tradition of excellence in online education that spans 24 years. Berkeley College first began offering accredited online degrees in 2003. The college first began offering an accredited online MBA program in 2016. As of the fall 2021 semester, 37% of undergraduates were pursuing their degrees entirely online. These include a cohort of online students participating in our honors program, an interdisciplinary seminar-based educational opportunity available to high-achieving students. Berkeley College Online attracts a diverse student body comprised of working parents, grandparents, young adults managing work and studies, and those actively serving in the military. Berkeley College's online classes are fully vetted and designed to meet specific learning objectives. There is a high level of investment in quality online course preparation, resources, and technology. Online classes are as vigorous as on-site classes, and in some cases more so, as they require good time management to be successful. While academics are essential, support services are also vital to the student experience and success, especially for at-risk student populations. Berkeley College students pursuing a degree online have access to the same support services as students who attend on-site, including academic advisement, the library, the Center for Academic Success, which helps with skills like time management and public speaking, career services, personal counseling, and the Office of Military and Veterans Affairs. Online campus life experiences include online clubs, virtual volunteerism, wellness, and personal development programs, and workshops focusing on student success. In 2020, the Berkeley College Office of Career Services offered more than 150 free programs and events online, including hybrid and virtual career fairs, internship workshops, and webinars with employers and students, interview and resume preparation sessions, networking events, LinkedIn workshops, and seminars on how to work in a remote environment. The continuity of these supports has enabled students and alums to progress along their own chosen career paths through placement opportunities and virtual internships and professional employment. One more remark I'd like to make off of my submitted testimony is that online students with disabilities are able to work with either a professional tutor, a coach, or a personal counselor each day of the week. Coaches help with academic skills, communications, with professors, tutors, and academic staff. I want to again thank the Committee on Higher Education for the opportunity to appear today and remain at the committee's disposal for any further assistance that may be required.
Thank you so much. So I have two people here who can provide two different perspectives, and I know CUNY professors and not CUNY, but I'm interested in hearing your perspectives on cost. And what do I mean by that? One, does the online learning, this is for both of you and I'll explain in a sec, does the online learning, in a sense, save money? So for example, if there's a class at 8 a.m., you don't have to open the building up as early, you don't have to, pay whatever employees to, clean the room as often, or the security. And given, it's a cost-saving measure, is it perhaps a solution to the concern of classes being canceled, where perhaps if there's 5 students in a class, a campus decides to cancel a section, but if there's 5 students in an online class, the university may decide not to cancel that section. I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. So it is true that, facilities are expensive. So brick and mortar and, like you said, cleaning up, maintenance and all of that are expensive. I can't give you exact figures on the ratios or whatever, but it's also important to understand that when online is done correctly, there is a tremendous investment in IT infrastructure, as I was discussing, student services, specialized training for counselors to be able to provide, and for faculty to be able to provide services directly to students in the online modality, as opposed to the on-site modality. So yes, there is less investment necessary, obviously, in facilities, maintenance, and all of these other issues, heating, cooling, and whatever costs there are, but there's also, on the other side, tremendous investment within technology and training and personnel.
And from the side of the professors, because I know there's this, we'll talk about some of the other challenges, but I know course cancellation is a real issue for professors, right? That's their livelihood, and students are perhaps missing out if a course doesn't fill up enough. So is this perhaps a solution? Is that something that administration has spoken to the professors about?
Yeah, I mean, speaking as a professor and also from the union, we have not heard that classes are canceled less frequently for small class size at, depending on the modality. So there tend to be cancellations just based on the number of people who are enrolled, and it's irregardless of whether or not it's online or not. At least that's the CUNY policy that I'm familiar with. As far as the kind of ongoing cost savings, I think one of our concerns, and this is about the potentiality for cheapening of the educational process. I think we have excellent online courses at CUNY, so I do not want to take away from that. But we're concerned that it's a model that invites a kind of mechanization and reproduction that you could have a course that's developed, it's fully developed, somebody is assigned to it, they have very little capacity to change it, they could be assigned to it at a lower pay, at a lower rate, to teach it, and therefore the full professor or the professor who designs a class, who constantly remakes the class, who is involved in updating a class, can be written out of the equation, and you can have a labor cost significantly lowered by having kind of rote coursework, and we don't want CUNY to go down that path. That's just one road that we're concerned about in terms of possible cost savings, and also to the question of brick and mortar, our campuses need incredible investment, and we need to make them as fantastic as possible for the students who still succeed better at in-person classes. It was great that our colleague from John Jay shared the information they have, and we don't seem to have data from CUNY as a whole, but in general, students do better in person from what this little information that we have, although we have many particular students who do excellently online, clearly. And we need that investment in the brick and mortar, and the extent to which we become more and more online, the extent to which investing in brick and mortar and investing in our campuses could possibly fall off.
Right. During CUNY's testimony, I think, it's good to know PSC and is interested in data as well. Because a lot of our university system is, our community colleges, right, and the other four-year institutions in our PSP and SPS. What acronym? It's too negative. SPS and John Jay, and I'm looking forward to that data. But I guess PSC doesn't have their own data that they collect. But anecdotally, have you heard? From yourself or other professors about student outcomes as it relates to online learning versus the on-campus learning and on-campus degree programs, the actual outcomes?
I can speak to what our colleague from John Jay shared, which shows, and she described it as this is pre-pandemic, and the rates of, the dropout, withdrawal, fail, incomplete rates are higher for online classes within the John Jay programs from 2014 to 2019. She shared that with us. I don't have access to CUNY-wide, and we do have the experience of the pandemic where we know, and I think it was exceptional, where online classes, were incredibly hard for large numbers of our students, and our enrollment is quite low. Or it's not quite low, I don't want to overstate it, but we have, decreasing enrollment at CUNY, and I can't speak to the cause and effect of that, but I will say anecdotally that we hear from many students that they are so glad that they can be back in person, the ones who can, and we have students who are so happy they can still be remote, but overall we have fewer students enrolled, and I think that we need to be investing in all of our educational platforms, but make sure that any investments we have in online doesn't hurt the in-person, and that we make a fully robust online program so that the students do have success rates in both programs, equally.
Right. Did you have something to add?
Just going back to the question of canceling classes, there's different reasons. Of course, a low enrollment is a big factor in canceling a class. But also, as far as our operations go, the biggest factor is, are there graduating students in that class that need that class? Do they need to graduate? And if so, and then we have no other options for those students, then those students, that class will not be canceled, and we'll run it because those students, we want to see them graduate. We would never want to see a student be delayed. So that's, is it more expensive to run a class with only a few students in it? Yes, it is, but to have them cross the graduation stage, that's the most important priority for us. And also, as far as the outcomes of online versus on-site, we offer a mix of modalities. So whether it's on-site, we have campus right here on 43rd Street in New York City, and most of our students take a mix of classes, whether they be on-site or online, and then also some take hybrid classes where they come in for, either part of the class time on-site every other week, or whether it's part on-site and online each week. And since we're a career college, we have a lot of specialized accreditors, and those accreditors, most of them are very focused on outcomes assessment. So we have to make sure that our assessments in the on-site and the online are the same, and that the learning objectives are the same, and the same material is covered. So, we do have a focus on that issue. We also have very sophisticated dashboards that analyze grade distribution, grading it online versus on-site versus hybrid. So we keep track of all of those issues, and we also keep track of outcomes assessment.
And Chair, if I may, just one quick thing on outcomes. I'm looking for the quote here, but studies have shown, at least for community colleges, that students have really good graduation rates when they have more than 0 and less than 25% of their courses available to them online, because it gives them that kind of flexibility. But the in-person, the combination, which is the mixed modalities that CUNY as a whole offers, is really key. And we want to make sure that our degree programs allow for, encourage that kind of mixed modality so that we have online, but that students are also there in person, because the in-person really sustains them through to graduation.
Right. I remain concerned about, or interested in, about assessments and how we are assessing the quality of these programs and the quality of the education that the students receive these programs. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you very much. I want to pick up on the chair's excellent suggestion on the data, and I know that PSC can't do it by yourself, but I think we should all be urging CUNY to do it, because when you're talking, I too taught at Hunter, and I remember during the pandemic, my Zoom crashed, and then the students had one. It was so embarrassing that they were able to pick up, or I could not. But what I'm trying to say is, it was very challenging not having seen anybody. So I think the mixture of in-person and Zoom, if that's what the class is about, makes sense, and if that works. We do need much more of an analysis as to whether online works. Does it work as a hybrid, as you're doing at Berkeley? Does it work professional? I think does work. I'm a big supporter of SBS, but it's a unique situation. They know what they're getting into before they start. So my question to you at PSC, and thank you, PSC, for everything, is what do you think, what kind of data should be collected? What kind of analysis should be done? I have a feeling this is going to continue. Let me give an example. Who knows why there are fewer students at CUNY? But one of them is people getting jobs during the pandemic. I know in Staten Island, what do I know about Staten Island? Except Amazon has pulled a whole bunch of people to their warehouse who were at CUNY. I know that for a fact. And why shouldn't, Amazon be paying, if they should, for classes at CUNY for students, maybe hybrid, maybe online. Just as an example, I know that's being discussed. So some of these companies that are employing young people who could be at CUNY and should be getting a graduate or undergraduate degree, to me, should be supporting the university and the student, and then that supports the company. But what I'm trying to say is, how do you think we should be collecting the data, and how should we be looking positively on the future of the campuses, maybe not PSP because they have a unique situation, but elsewhere, I just think we're going to be doing more online, for better, for worse. So I just would love your thoughts, and as somebody who's, on the ground.
Thank you for asking. I think that there are a lot of studies that have been happening over the past couple of decades, and obviously many more studies that are underway. And so the more in general that we can learn from what all the institutions, and we're already hearing from some, to compare like best practices and outcomes. So having readily available that work, and I know a lot of the folks at CUNY are following a lot of that, but so questions about class size, questions about faculty to student ratios, questions about the types of classes that, if there are types of classes that are better or worse. I mean, we know that there are certain fields that lend themselves to online more than others. But in holistic ways, I think also questions within CUNY we could look at about, the grades that students are getting between the two, the extent to which students progress from, lower level to higher level classes in the same subject, and how they do in second level classes after introductory classes in their online classes, right? So the outcomes in terms of their growth. Obviously, the DWFI numbers, the drop, withdrawal, fail, and incomplete numbers across the system. All of these, I think, and then of course the graduation rates, as were talked about before. I would think that a lot of these numbers would be largely available now, although not within a central database, but that each CUNY school would have access to these. And then also like the differences between small class sizes and bigger class sizes, because we have comparative data within CUNY where we have some schools that have 25-person limits and we have some schools that have 40-person limits. Is there a difference in the outcome?
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that, Mr. Chair, we could send a letter to CUNY as a follow-up with that excellent list of where's the data. If we're going into more online, which I have a feeling we are, every single one of what you just suggested has to be taken into account. There's nothing, I can't even imagine an online course with 100 people. Nobody's going to learn a thing. And people using their cell phones and they can't see anybody else. Anyway, that would be a real excellent list. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I should say that for the classes that I've heard about that are online at those sizes, at Hunter and I think at Brooklyn I've heard, there are teaching assistants, and I mean, it's not one person, but I do think that it requires a lot of support.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. Before I call up the last panel, is there anyone here or anyone online who is interested in testifying? If you are online and interested in testifying, please use the raise hand function. And for our last panel, Anthony Picciano and Sean O'Reilly from Pace University. Both are on Zoom.
Can you hear me?
You may begin.
Thank you. I want to thank your committee for this invitation. I'm sorry, I meant to be there in person, but last week I was tested positive for COVID, and I'm still suffering from flu-like symptoms. My voice may crack a bit, so I apologize. I would have preferred to be there in person, but I appreciate the opportunity to do this in Zoom. I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to be quick, and I'm going to talk in my my briefest South Bronx accent, where I was born and raised. But I'm going to dismiss what was my kind of formal presentation, because I heard a lot of provocative things here this morning, and I think I would like to respond to them. Much of what was discussed had to do with what's going on now, although I recall that the title of this session was the past, the present, and the future. And I think we need to talk a little, I'd like to talk a little bit about the past, because we don't understand how we got here always. And there was a lot of discussion of how the pandemic kind of changed everything. not just for higher education, but for the whole world. But I started teaching online in 1996, and I was very fortunate to receive a lot of funding from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, not just for me, but for the whole CUNY system. We had several $1 million in grants, and we continued to receive funding until 2013. It was a wonderful time, particularly the first 5 or 6 years, because anytime we had any kind of success, it was something important. And my faculty colleagues were very dubious about the handful of people who were doing this at the beginning. But within, I would say, 5 or 6 years, with a lot of training and support, we had thousands of faculty and CUNY faculty literally taking workshops on how to teach online. And I think that was a very important period of development. Other things that I've been involved with, I was one of the founders of the Online Learning Consortium. That's an international consortium of 900 colleges that promote quality in online learning. It's now called the Online Learning Consortium, originally called the Sloan Consortium. I've been involved with a number of faculty development programs throughout the country, including Berkeley College and Western Governors University over the years. But what I'd like to say, and I think the real thrust, and we started getting into it a little bit in the last panel, I think that the first couple of panels focused entirely on fully online programs and to some degree fully online courses. At CUNY, fully online programs enroll thousands of students, and I think the two models you had, surely SPS and John Jay College, are fine models to look at. But we have hundreds of thousands of students at CUNY who are not taking fully online programs and are not taking fully online courses.
Time's expired.
And for them, the real model is the blended or the hybrid model. And I would say that particularly we were evolving to the blended model, and we have accelerated towards it because of the pandemic. And my sense is that we have become a blended university, not just CUNY, but many throughout higher education. Every aspect of administration, research, and teaching is now affected by some aspect of technology. And if you want to concentrate on teaching and learning, the blended model is very, very well developed. It is well understood. And you asked several times, I think it was very astute of you to ask questions about outcomes. Probably the most significant study done on this was done by Barbara Means, heavily funded by the United States Department of Education in 2013, where she looked at, it was a meta-analysis, she looked at 50 studies and compared outcomes of online versus in person. Her conclusion was that there was no significant difference between those two. The only significant difference in effect sizes was for the blended model. And I would dare say that for CUNY, that is the model that should be invested in and developed significantly.
Thank you.
I have no
if you
objection
can wrap
to
it up,
fully
that would be
online.
great. Thank you.
Okay. And I would just say for the future, as you pursue funding or other kinds of support for CUNY, please do not ignore the blended model. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Sean O'Reilly from Pace University.
Thank you. My name is Sean O'Reilly, and good morning, council members, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I am responsible for, my primary role at Pace University is to oversee strategy, planning, operations, and assessment of online learning across our campuses and locations. As you may know, Pace University is a private, non-profit comprehensive university with campus locations in Manhattan, Pleasantville, and White Plains. Pace has served citizens of New York City since its founding in 1906 and has helped generations of New York City residents achieve their dream of a college degree. Our motto is Opportunitas and promises that we will be at the forefront of creating opportunity for our students and community. A 2017 study by Opportunity Insights at Harvard University ranked Pace University as the first in the nation amongst four-year private institutions for upward economic mobility based on students who enter college at the bottom fifth of the income distribution and end up at the top fifth. At Pace, we believe that delivering on relevant high-quality educational experiences via a variety of modalities and formats fits our opportunity-focused mission. Pace has a significant history with distance education in New York. In its early years, Pace offered correspondence courses for students who could not attend in person. PACE was a pioneer in online learning in New York, offering one of the first fully online degree programs in the state and assisting in writing some early regulation and policy for the Department of Education. In recent years, PACE has significantly expanded its online programs, enrollment, and support for faculty and students. PACE now enrolls nearly 700 students in fully online degree programs and certificates in over 20 individual online programs across the university. 5 of our online programs are currently ranked in the top 50 nationally by U.S. News and World Report. Our success rate, the percentage of students who start in a program that are still enrolled or have graduated from online students, is typically above 75%. The average online student at PACE is in the early 30s, has some previous higher education experience, typically is working full-time, and likely paying for a full degree program themselves. Challenges and opportunities for online higher education in New York City. Challenges include flexibility and schedule modality. New York City residents have the same needs for flexible remote learning opportunities as any other part of the country. Just because we live in a dense urban community, that doesn't mean that students don't have the same work-life challenges that other students around the country have. Commuting to campus 2 or 3 nights a week from one part of the city to the other can still take an hour plus time each way. So having the opportunities to study on schedules and locations that are most convenient is still very important to these working adults. Financing. Online students are mostly part-time working adults and mostly study at a part-time pace. This limits the kind of amounts of aid that they qualify for. TAP and Pell Grants are significantly less for students that study less than 12 credits, typically 4 courses a semester. And other forms of aid like the GI Bill for veterans and many types of merit aid require full-time study to achieve the maximum benefit. The digital divide. Access to internet, hardware, and software is still a challenge for many New York City residents. All the latest ed tech innovations are meaningless without the ability to access a course remotely. Students' ability to have consistent access to technology, internet is important for many online students. And quality control. Online learning has advanced significantly in the past few years. Emerging technologies, improved online pedagogy, and increasingly sophisticated experiences that can replicate or even improve upon traditional classroom experiences. But quality for those experiences can vary greatly between courses, programs, and colleges. Opportunities. Delivering high quality online education for residents, New York City residents, may help them save time and money earning their degree. Not spending time on the train or in traffic, commuting back and forth in class to complete their work on their schedule can be meaningful. There are significant pandemic effects. Because of the pandemic, more and more working adults are seeking online and graduate professional development opportunities. Sometime in the near future, it may be that the vast majority of these programs nationwide will be offered fully online. Traditional age students have gotten more accustomed to online learning through the pandemic. While their first choice for traditional age students may be to study in person, occasionally online courses may help them complete their degree. And finally, digital micro-credentials and faculty support for online learning. PACE now offers credit-bearing and non-credit micro-credential badges for smaller, more tailored professional development experiences. Many of these badge programs are offered online, and the earned credential can be shared and distributed online through social media. Faculty support for online learning. Every week, new technology and development emerges that helps improve online teaching pedagogy, best practices, and uses of emerging technologies. Many of these technologies can be significantly expensive and difficult to implement. More funding and support for colleges that want to produce high-end digital materials for online programs would be useful. In summary, the pandemic has certainly accelerated an already fast evolution for online learning in higher education. We are seeing significantly more interest in online learning modalities from students, faculty, and the general community. Thank you for your opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. So I just want to get to your last point you made about new emerging technologies. How big of an issue is access to hardware, software, and the internet for the students, and who can help solve that problem for New Yorkers?
It's a significant issue, and I think the pandemic really was something that for us at PACE, I think really opened our eyes to the challenges that students have accessing digital materials and online resources. Many students are trying to do school off their phone. And so we would see students sitting in a living room on their phone trying to complete their coursework or view the Zoom. If they're not in a part of the city or part of the region that has affordable internet access, they're probably doing it off of a cell phone connection, which can be inconsistent and certainly make the ability to do meetings like this really difficult. So, programs that the city offers for students to either go someplace and access high quality internet connections, or the ability for areas to get access to consistent, high-quality internet is, I think, really important, not just for higher ed, but for the city in general. But certainly, having students try to take their classes in a Starbucks or in a quiet area of the public library can make it more difficult for students to complete their studies.
Thank you. And you said that in the near future, it may be that the vast majority of graduate professional development opportunities nationwide are going to be online. Is that the direction in which PACE is headed as well?
Well, certainly we're seeing out of the pandemic a much greater interest in our online programs going in. And I know from my colleagues in the region and around the country that there's been a really spiked interest in studying online. Some of the fields in graduate education already are approaching or passing 50% total enrollment in online education. Things like criminal justice that John Jay talked about earlier, education programs are if not majority online students, then certainly a significant part of the total graduate school population. And it's because it's working adults who are typically taking those degrees. And I think people through the last couple of years have said, if I have the ability to complete a degree in the modality that makes most sense for me, complete it from my own home, there's just a significant convenience factor that's pushing them to online programs versus coming on campus and doing things in person.
Thank you. I want to thank this panel. This was the final panel. And I want to thank everyone who testified today, including CUNY, and for the information they shared, for the work that everyone here is doing, from the professors to the other universities, to CUNY, to the students. We look forward to getting more of the data that we requested here and working with Councilmember Brewer to request other data. It's important that as these programs are built, that they are built from the ground up with UDL, Universal Design for Learning, in mind to meet the needs of all learners, and that they are constantly being evaluated and assessed with not just experts in the field, but recognizing that those experts include professors and students and the employers who these degrees and these certifications are supposed to help. And we also look forward to hearing more about the collaboration within CUNY that they are doing to share best practices with the schools and the campuses inside and outside the system. Thank you again for everyone who attended and for everyone who testified today. The hearing is now adjourned.